Over 40 counterfeit crypto wallet browser extensions have recently been discovered on Mozilla Firefox, designed specifically to steal users' login details as part of an ongoing phishing scheme. Popular wallets like MetaMask, Coinbase, Trust Wallet, and Phantom are among those being targeted. If you're like me and tired of lying awake at night worrying about your digital assets being compromised, then you might want to consider checking out iTrustCapital. And honestly, that's how most of you tuning in probably feel too. Personally, I've got 3 accounts with them, including a couple IRAs and one of their premium custody accounts. Back when they launched those premium accounts, you couldn't deposit crypto directly, but that's changed now. You can transfer your XRP right in, and it's protected with institutional grade custody, completely free. The only cost involved is a 1% fee when you're buying or selling. Super straightforward. If you're thinking about getting started, they've been a trusted partner of mine for a long time. Just head over to itrustcapital.com XRP Army. That's the custom page they set up for me and Brad Combs. Take a look. The market might be quiet at the moment, but trust me, what's happening here is anything but boring. There was a recent interview featuring Jack McDonald, who's heading up Ripple's RLUSD project, alongside one of the co-founders of Wormhole. As you might remember, Ripple just teamed up with Wormhole, and this conversation really shed light on what that partnership could mean.
Church, I'm going to play you a few clips, but in our private group, I'm going to share the real gem. Probably the first time Jack McDonald hints that Ripple is working directly with BlackRock. Trust me, you're going to want to catch that. You can access it by going to DAX.com to join via Patreon, by hitting the join button below this video, or by subscribing on X. Now let's dive into what's really happening with Ripple and Wormhole. What sparked this collaboration? What's the bigger picture here? Jack touched on something pretty huge. While Ripple and XRP have been around for years, there's a new wave of innovation building. Almost a renaissance within the XRPL ecosystem. Until now, XRPL has mostly operated in its own lane, separate from other major chains like Ethereum, Solana, and Sui. But that's changing. Ripple is starting to connect with the broader blockchain world. With the addition of the EVM-compatible sidechain, you're going to see real activity flowing between XRPL and other major ecosystems we all know and use. That's a game changer. Security is front and center in all of this. Wormhole, which works closely with institutions, is bringing serious security standards to this cross-chain push. The goal is to ensure every connection between XRPL and other blockchains is rock solid. Another key point, Ripple and the XRPL ecosystem are clearly aiming to go multi-chain. They're paying close attention to what users and builders want, and looking to give them more flexibility. At RLUSD specifically, they launched the stablecoin on both XRPL and Ethereum right out of the gate, even though the project is just 6 months old. They're not trying to do everything alone either. With Wormhole on board, Ripple has a trusted partner to help bridge to other chains in a secure, scalable, and compliant way. So the future of this partnership, it's looking big, and it's only just beginning.
Then there was this other clip that really stood out. USDC has been around for a while, everyone knows it, but what does it mean for a newer stablecoin like RLUSD to build things the right way from day one? Jack McDonald explained how Ripple is taking a fresh approach by ensuring there's one true version of the stablecoin on every chain it touches, not just wrapped tokens or derivatives. He even joked, "What's USDC? Never heard of it," but then got into the serious stuff. From the issuer side, there's a lot of complexity. Ripple is very strategic about which blockchains RLUSD, EOS2, and it's not just technical, there's a whole process of analyzing where real institutional demand exists. Ripple's always been focused on institutional use cases, so wherever RLUSD goes, it's based on where large-scale utility is actually needed. Each chain has its own quirks, so issuing directly on multiple networks takes serious expertise, not just in tech, but in security and regulatory compliance. That's one of the biggest reasons they teamed up with Wormhole to streamline this expansion and do it securely, efficiently, and within the rules. Ripple is a regulated stablecoin issuer, licensed by the New York Department of Financial Services, and that means every new chain needs DFS approval. If they were operating under typical money transmitter licenses, the oversight would be way less intense. But Ripple's holding itself to a higher standard, and they're not cutting corners. They don't want to issue wrapped assets, they want to deploy RLUSD natively on each chain, maintaining full control over the smart contract, including features like freeze and clawback if necessary. This level of control is key, and it's something they're building hand in hand with Wormhole. The goal is to unlock cross-chain use cases in a faster, safer, and more compliant way. It's all about both teams leaning into their strengths, Ripple focusing on compliance and issuance, and Wormhole bringing the infrastructure and security to make it all work smoothly. What we're really talking about here is XRP stepping into a role where it can finally connect with everything else. True interoperability. And let's not forget what Chris Larsen said years ago. He pointed out something powerful. More people on this planet have smartphones than access to basic plumbing. Think about that. The World Bank set a goal by 2020, every adult should be able to access a bank account right from their phone. We may have missed that 2020 target, but we're absolutely on track to hit it in this decade. The pieces are all falling into place. The devices are already in people's hands. The technology is converging, and what's missing? Just the system to connect it all. A smartphone already brings two major pieces to the table. The app layer, like what Facebook and Google did for the web, and a basic database layer through carriers or banks. But what's been missing is the internet protocol layer, the universal language or infrastructure that ties it all together. Think of it like the shipping container of the digital finance world. Well, that missing piece is finally here. And once we combine these devices, apps, databases, and a universal interoperability layer, boom, the game changes overnight. Suddenly, companies that were local or niche will have access to a global platform. It's going to be a Cambrian explosion for fintech. We all know how hard it is to scale within even one country. Going global, that's a nightmare. But with this new infrastructure coming together, that's about to become a whole lot easier. And that's good news for everyone involved. There you have it, folks. Happy 4th of July. Just wanted to give you this quick update. Big news incoming. The U.S. House has officially designated July 14th or 18th as Crypto Week. That's right, it's just around the corner. And shout out to Bo Hines. His title always slips my mind. He's the executive director for the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets. He congratulated President Trump and the House for pushing through a major game-changing bill. Next stop, Crypto Week on Capitol Hill. It's happening the week of the 14th. And even bigger, the Clarity Act, an incredibly well-structured market regulation bill, is now moving to the Senate. From there, straight to the president's desk. Momentum is building, folks. We're not slowing down. We're just getting started. We're going to keep stacking wins. And then there's David Sachs, aka the Crypto Czar. Up next, Crypto Week, kicking off July 14th. The Genius Act is making its way to the president's desk, and the Clarity Act, focused on crypto market structure, is now headed to the Senate. This is real momentum. Huge steps forward.
All right, folks, here's something to think about. JPMorgan just put out a prediction that stablecoin growth will cap at around $500 billion by 2028. Meanwhile, Bo Hines, he's talking in the ballpark of $15 to $20 trillion. No word on the exact timeline, but that's a massive difference in outlook. Then we've got the Treasury Secretary chiming in, saying this administration is fully behind digital assets. Why? Because it's not just about crypto itself, it's about the entire wave of innovation that comes with it. She even called it one of the most important global shifts happening right now, and yet for years the US just sat on the sidelines and ignored it.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. What you're about to hear hasn't happened since the 1930s. And it's kind of wild. So here's the setup. Someone floated the idea of a certain name, possibly becoming both Fed chair and Treasury secretary. That's right, holding both positions at the same time. There are even betting odds popping up on Polymarket. Can it actually happen? Technically, yes, but it hasn't been done since way back in the early 1930s. When asked about it, the response was, let's just say not a hard no. More like, I'm happy where I am. We've got a lot of great Fed chair candidates. We'll start focusing on that in the fall. We've just been busy landing major deals, peace agreements, trade, taxes, and after Labor Day, apparently they'll have more bandwidth to think about that big decision. But again, that was not a no. And that makes this whole double roll talk way more real than anyone expected. And now check this out. This next part comes from Judy Shelton, and it's powerful. Let's roll the clip. She argues that the Federal Reserve is slowly weakening the private sector by shifting more power into the hands of the government. In her view, that's not capitalism. It's creeping towards socialism. Shelton flips the usual narrative. Instead of worrying about an authoritarian president taking control of the economy, she says we should be more concerned about the Federal Reserve itself. Why? Because it's not some small, neutral institution. The Fed has enormous, unchecked power. It can buy limitless amounts of government debt, create unlimited money with a single keystroke, and pay massive interest to commercial banks and money market funds using taxpayer dollars. Even worse, there are no real safeguards in place to protect the value of the US dollar. The Fed is essentially allowed to pursue a policy of 2% annual debasement of our currency with no clear accountability. So if we're talking about responsible governance and what democratic oversight should look like, Shelton's warning is that this is where the real risk lies. Not in a rogue president, but in an all-powerful central bank. Sorry guys, I know I've been reworking this video for a while, just got delayed because of a few things keeping me busy, but we're back on track now. Let's go.